That night, she was sorting through her dead sister's belongings when she heard breathing under the bed. She never imagined what she would find staring back at her. 2 pairs of glowing eyes in the darkness. In her shock, she whispered without thinking, and they calmed instantly, as if her voice alone could stitch their terror into something bearable. Now, as the pups pressed against her legs and distant howls echoed through the trees, Kaylani realized 3 terrible truths. Her sister hadn't died in an accident. This cabin was never meant to be empty, and something in the forest was coming to reclaim what she'd just found. Hey, quick question, how are you feeling right now? Thank you so much for being here. It really means the world to me. If this story of the woman who found twin pups under her dead sister's bed, and the beta who thought he'd lost everything, is gripping your heart, please hit that subscribe button for Ariel Romance Library, smash the like, and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. It helps more than you know. Alright, thank you. Now let's get back to what happens when the thing breathing in the darkness finally steps into the light. The mountain road disappeared behind Kaylani bridges like a closing door. 3 hours of driving. No cell service for the last 40 minutes. Just trees pressing closer with every mile, their branches forming a tunnel that swallowed the late afternoon sun. Her sister's cabin sat at the end of a dirt path that looked more like a suggestion than an actual road. Kaylani killed the engine and sat in the sudden silence, her hands still gripping the steering wheel. Kiana had been dead for a year of unanswered questions, a year of guilt that sat in Kaylani's chest like a stone, a year of wondering why her sister had chosen this remote place, this isolation, this silence. The cabin looked smaller than Kaylani remembered from the single photo Kiana had sent. Dark wood, a porch that sagged slightly on one side, windows that reflected the forest back at her like closed eyes. Kaylani forced herself out of the car. The air hit her immediately, cold, sharp, carrying something she couldn't name but felt in her bones. The forest was too quiet. No birds, no rustling. Just the wind moving through pine needles like a held breath. She grabbed her backpack and the box of supplies from the trunk. Her boots crunched on gravel as she approached the porch steps. Each one creaked under her weight, announcing her arrival to the empty woods. The front door wasn't locked. That should have been her first warning. Inside, the cabin felt frozen. Not cold exactly, but preserved, like someone had walked out intending to return and never made it back. A coffee mug sat on the kitchen counter, a faint ring of dried liquid at the bottom. Mail lay scattered across the small dining table. A blanket was draped over the back of the couch, one corner trailing onto the floor. Kaylani set her things down and wrapped her arms around herself. This was a mistake. Coming here, thinking she could find answers in the place where Kiana had spent her final months, thinking she could outrun her grief by hiding in the same mountains that had hidden her sister. She walked through the cabin slowly, taking inventory. Kitchen, living room, bathroom, and a single bedroom at the back with a bed that looked like it hadn't been slept in for months. The grief pressed down harder. Kaylani sank onto the edge of the bed, her eyes burning. She should cry. She wanted to cry, but the tears wouldn't come. They never did anymore. Then she heard it, breathing, soft, uneven, coming from beneath the bed. Kaylani froze. Her pulse hammered in her throat. The rational part of her brain offered explanations. An animal, a raccoon, a stray cat that had found its way inside, but the breathing didn't sound like any animal she knew. She slid off the bed slowly, her knees hitting the cold wooden floor. Her heart pounded so hard she could feel it in her fingertips. She bent down, peering into the darkness under the bed frame. 2 eyes stared back at her, glowing, golden, unblinking. Kaylani gasped and jerked backward. Then she saw the second pair, 4 eyes total, low to the ground, reflecting the dim light from the window like tiny moons. Her breath came in short, sharp bursts. She should run. She should grab her keys and get back in her car and never look back. But something stopped her. The breathing had changed. Faster now, panicked, and underneath it, a sound that made her chest ache. Whimpering, Kaylani forced herself to stay still, to breathe, to think. Hey, she whispered. Her voice cracked. Hey, it's okay. The whimpering stopped. The eyes blinked. Kailani swallowed hard and tried again. I'm not going to hurt you. One of the creatures shifted. She heard the scrape of claws on wood. Then, slowly, a shape emerged from under the bed. A wolf pup. No, not just a wolf pup. Its fur was matted and dirty, ribs visible beneath its coat. But it was too large for its age, its paws too big, its eyes too intelligent. And there was something else. Something in the way it moved, the way it watched her. The second pup followed, smaller, but just as thin. They crouched low, bodies trembling, ready to bolt or fight. Kailani's throat tightened. They were starving. Oh God, she breathed. How long have you been here? The pups didn't answer, but their eyes followed her every movement as she slowly pushed herself to her feet. Her mind raced. Food. She needed food. And water. She backed out of the bedroom carefully, keeping her movements slow and non-threatening. In the kitchen, she rummaged through the supplies she'd brought. Jerky, protein bars. Nothing ideal, but it would have to work. She tore open the jerky package and returned to the bedroom doorway. The pups hadn't moved. They stood in the center of the room now, watching her with an intensity that made her skin prickle. Kailani knelt down and held out a piece of jerky. Come on, she said softly. You're hungry. I know you are. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the larger pup took a step forward, then another. Its nose twitched, catching the scent of the food. When it reached Kailani, it snatched the jerky from her hand so fast she barely saw it move. The second pup followed, more cautious, but just as desperate. Kailani fed them slowly, piece by piece, until the package was empty. The pups' trembling eased. Their bodies relaxed. And then, without warning, they pressed against her legs. Warm fur, solid weight, the vibration of something that wasn't quite a purr but close. Tears finally came. Kailani sat on the floor and let them curl against her, their small bodies fitting perfectly in the space between her crossed legs. She stroked their heads, feeling the knobs of their spines, the softness of their ears. Where did you come from? She whispered. They didn't answer. But their breathing slowed, deepened, and for the first time since she'd arrived, the cabin felt less empty. Outside, the sun dropped below the tree line. The forest grew darker, and somewhere in that darkness, a howl rose, distant, mournful, like a question thrown into the void. The pups' heads snapped up. Their bodies went rigid. Kailani's blood turned cold. Because she recognized that sound, not from memory, but from something deeper. Something primal that lived in her bones and knew danger when it heard it. The howl came again. Closer this time. The pups whined and pressed harder against her, their eyes fixed on the window. Kailani's hands tightened in their fur. This cabin wasn't empty by accident. Someone had left these pups here, hidden them here, and now something was coming to find them. Harvey Richmond had stopped being a man the day he returned to ashes. 1 year ago. 14 months, 6 days. He counted because the numbers were the only thing that felt solid anymore. Everything else was smoke, memory, the phantom weight of a pack bond that had been severed so violently it left scars on his soul. The forest remembered the massacre. Harvey could still smell it when he walked through the ruins. Blood soaked into earth, burned fur, the char of wood and flesh that had stained the air for weeks after. His brother's pack had been wiped out in a single night. 37 wolves. Gone. Including Gregory Richmond, the alpha, the visionary, the brother who had believed coexistence was possible, who had preached peace while the world beyond their territory grew more dangerous, more hostile, more willing to hunt wolves for sport. Harvey had called him naive. Gregory had called Harvey a coward. The argument had torn through the pack house like wildfire. Harvey remembered every word, every cutting accusation, every moment of rage that had made him storm out into the night, certain he'd return when his brother's idealism finally broke against reality. He'd returned 3 days later. The pack house was rubble. Bodies lay in the clearing, torn apart, left as warnings. Gregory's mate, Lydia, had been pregnant. The nursery they'd been building was nothing but splintered wood and ash. Harvey had found Gregory's body near the main entrance, his throat ripped out, his eyes still open, staring at nothing. Harvey had fallen to his knees in the blood and the ashes and screamed until his voice gave out. Then he'd done the only thing that made sense. He'd started hunting. The rival alpha who'd orchestrated the massacre was named Armani Conway, a wolf who believed dominance was the only language the world understood anymore, who had spent years expanding his territory through violence and fear. Gregory's pack had been in his way, so Armani had erased them. Harvey had spent the last year tracking Armani's movements, learning his patterns, waiting for the perfect moment to end him. Revenge had become oxygen, the only thing that kept Harvey's wolf from tearing through his skin and never returning. But tonight something changed. Harvey stood in the ruins of his former territory, the place he'd sworn never to return to, because a scent had pulled him here. A scent that shouldn't exist. Ghost scent. Bloodline. Impossible. Harvey's wolf surged beneath his skin, pushing, demanding. He closed his eyes and forced himself to breathe, to think, to stay human long enough to understand what his senses were telling him. The scent was faint. Weeks old, maybe older, but unmistakable. Gregory's bloodline, alive. Harvey's eyes snapped open. His brother had died childless. Lydia had been 6 months pregnant when she was killed. The healers had confirmed both deaths. There were no survivors. So why was he smelling pack blood on the wind? He followed the trail like a man possessed. Through the forest. Past the old territory markers. Into land that bordered human settlements. Places his brother's pack had avoided. The scent led him to a cabin. Small, isolated, surrounded by trees that pressed too close, like they were trying to hide it. Harvey circled the perimeter, every sense on high alert. The scent was stronger here. Recent, mixed with something else. Human, female. His wolf responded with a violence that nearly dropped him to his knees. Not aggression. Something worse. Recognition. Harvey forced the wolf down and approached the cabin. Moonlight filtered through the trees, casting everything in silver and shadow. He could hear movement inside. A heartbeat. 2. No. 3. 3 heartbeats. 1 human. 2 smaller. Faster. Pups. Harvey's world tilted. He climbed onto the porch silently, his body moving on instinct. The door was unlocked. He pushed it open slowly, stepping into the darkness of the cabin. The scent hit him immediately. Pack blood, Gregory's line, and underneath it, terror. Harvey moved through the cabin like smoke. Kitchen, living room, then the bedroom at the back. He saw her before she saw him. A woman, human, sitting on the floor with 2 wolf pups pressed against her body, her arms wrapped around them protectively. The pups were thin, starving, but alive. Gregory's sons. Harvey knew it in his bones before his brain caught up. The shape of their faces, the color of their fur, the way they held themselves even in fear. His nephews. The woman's head snapped up. Her eyes met his across the darkness, and the bond snapped into place like a trap closing. Heat. Awareness. A pull so strong Harvey felt it in his teeth. His wolf roared, not in rage but in claiming. Mine. Ours. Protect. Harvey snarled and shoved the wolf down with everything he had. The woman didn't scream. She should have. A strange wolf appearing in her cabin, eyes glowing, power radiating off him in waves. She should have run. Instead, she tightened her arms around the pups and lifted her chin. Get out, her voice shook, but there was steel underneath. Harvey's wolf responded with approval. Strong, brave, worthy. He forced himself to speak in a voice that sounded more human than animal. Those pups, where did you find them? I said get out. Their pack. My pack. And you're in danger. The woman's eyes narrowed. The only danger I see is standing in front of me. Harvey took a step forward. The pups whined and tried to burrow deeper into the woman's arms. They were afraid of him. Of course they were. They didn't know him, didn't recognize him. They only knew that their pack had been slaughtered and now a strange wolf stood between them and the only safety they'd found. Harvey stopped moving, forced himself to breathe, to push the wolf down far enough that he could think like a beta again. "My name is Harvey Richmond," he said quietly. "Those pups are my brother's sons. I thought they were dead." The woman stared at him for a long moment. Her heartbeat was fast, but steady. Not panicking, assessing. "Your brother," she repeated. "Gregory Richmond, alpha of the Brock pack, slaughtered 14 months ago." Harvey's voice roughened. "These pups shouldn't exist, but they do, and the wolves who killed their parents will come for them if they know." The woman's grip on the pups tightened. "How do I know you're telling the truth?" "You don't." Silence stretched between them. Then one of the pups whined and shifted, looking up at the woman. She looked down, her expression softening in a way that made Harvey's chest ache. When she looked back at him, something had changed in her eyes. "My name is Kaylani Bridges," she said. "This was my sister's cabin. She died a year ago. I came here to figure out why. Instead, I found them." She paused. "If you're their uncle, prove it." Harvey moved slowly, carefully, until he was close enough to kneel. The pups watched him with wary eyes. He extended his hand, palm up, and waited. After a moment, the larger pup leaned forward and sniffed. Then it lunged, not to attack, to press its small body against Harvey's chest, whining and shaking. The second pup followed. Harvey's throat closed. He wrapped his arms around them, feeling their ribs, their weakness, their desperate need for pack. For family. For safety. "They were supposed to be dead," he said hoarsely. "I searched the ruins. I found nothing." Kaylani watched him with an expression he couldn't read. "Someone hid them. My brother. Or his mate. They must have known. Sent them away before." He couldn't finish the sentence. Kaylani stood slowly. "There's something else you should know." Harvey looked up at her. "I've been hearing howls," she said. "All night. Getting closer." Harvey's blood went cold. "We need to leave," he said. "Now." Because somewhere in the darkness, Armani Conway's wolves had picked up a scent trail, and they were closing in. Kaylani had 15 minutes to pack. Harvey moved through the cabin like controlled violence, checking windows, testing doors, his body radiating tension that made the air feel electric. "Only essentials," he said without looking at her. "Food, water, warm clothes. Leave everything else." Kaylani wanted to argue, wanted to demand explanations, proof, anything that made sense. But the pups pressed against her legs, trembling, and she knew Harvey was right. Something was coming. She grabbed her backpack and started shoving things inside. Protein bars, water bottles, the heavy jacket she'd brought for the mountain cold. Her hands shook, but she forced them steady. Harvey appeared in the doorway. "How long have they been here?" "I don't know. I just arrived today." His eyes flashed. "Your sister. How did she die?" The question landed like a fist. Kaylani's throat tightened. "Car accident. That's what they told me. But she was a careful driver, and she never explained why she moved out here in the first place." Harvey's expression darkened. "No accident. She was protecting them, hiding them. How would she even know about them?" Pack bonds work in strange ways. Maybe she had gifts. Maybe Gregory reached out before he died. Maybe she just happened to be in the right place. Harvey's jaw clenched. "It doesn't matter now. What matters is getting you and them away from here." A howl split the night air. Close. Too close. The pups whined and pressed harder against Kaylani. She dropped to her knees instinctively, wrapping her arms around them. "It's okay. We're okay." Except they weren't. Harvey crossed to the window and looked out. His body went rigid. 3 wolves, maybe more, circling the perimeter. "Can you fight them?" "I can, but not while protecting you and the pups." He turned to face her, and the intensity in his eyes made her breath catch. "Listen to me carefully. When we run, you stay behind me. No matter what happens, no matter what you see, do not stop. Do not look back. Understand?" Kaylani nodded. Harvey moved to the back door. "This leads into denser forest. We'll have cover, but they'll track us." "How long do we have?" "Until they get bored circling and decide to attack." Harvey's eyes met hers. Which means we leave now. He opened the door. The forest beyond was a wall of darkness. Kailani's heart hammered against her ribs as she scooped up the smaller pup. The larger one stayed close to her legs, pressed against Harvey's side. They moved into the trees. The cold hit immediately. Kailani's breath misted in the air as she hurried after Harvey's shadowy form. He moved like he was part of the forest, silent and sure. The pup in her arms stayed perfectly still, its small body warm against her chest. Behind them, the howls grew louder. Harvey didn't run. He navigated, taking paths that wound through underbrush, over fallen logs, through spaces too narrow for larger wolves to follow easily. Kailani's lungs burned. Her legs ached, but she kept moving. They'd been walking for maybe 20 minutes when Harvey stopped suddenly. Kailani nearly crashed into his back. "What?" He raised a hand. Silence. Then she heard it. Movement in the brush. The soft padding of paws on earth. Something circling. Harvey's body changed. Not shifting, but preparing. His shoulders broadened. His eyes glowed faintly in the moonlight filtering through the trees. "Stay behind me," he growled. The wolf emerged from the darkness like smoke-given teeth. Massive, gray, eyes burning with intelligence and malice. It fixed on Kailani and the pups, lips pulling back to reveal fangs that gleamed in the dim light. Harvey moved between them faster than Kailani could track. The attacking wolf lunged. What happened next was too fast, too brutal to fully process. Harvey met the wolf mid-leap, bodies colliding with a sound that made Kailani's bones ache. They hit the ground in a tangle of fur and fury. Harvey was still human-shaped, but barely. His hands ended in claws. His teeth were too sharp. He moved with a violence that was terrifying and beautiful in equal measure. The fight lasted maybe 30 seconds. When it ended, the gray wolf lay motionless on the forest floor, throat torn, blood steaming in the cold air. Harvey stood over the body, breathing hard, blood on his hands and face. Kailani couldn't move, couldn't speak. The pup in her arms trembled, and she realized she was shaking too. Harvey turned to face her. His eyes were still glowing, still more wolf than human. For a heartbeat, she thought he might attack, might turn that violence on her next. Then he blinked, and the glow faded. "Are you hurt?" His voice was rough, barely recognizable. Kailani shook her head. Harvey moved closer. The larger pup pressed against his leg, whining softly. He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and placed his hand on her shoulder. The touch sent electricity through her entire body. "We need to keep moving," he said quietly. "That one had friends." "You killed him?" "Yes." "Just like that?" "Yes." Harvey's hand dropped. "I'm not a good man, Kailani. I stopped being a good man the day I found my pack slaughtered. I'm a weapon now. A very angry weapon pointed at the wolves who destroyed everything I loved." His eyes held hers. "But I won't let them touch you or these pups. That's a promise." Kailani should have been terrified. She should have run. Instead, she heard herself say, "Then lead the way." Something flickered in Harvey's expression. Surprise, maybe. Or respect. He nodded once and turned back into the darkness. Kailani followed. They walked for hours. The forest grew denser. The temperature dropped. Kailani's body moved on autopilot, one foot in front of the other, the pup growing heavier in her arms with each step. Finally, when her legs were ready to give out, Harvey stopped. "Here." An outcropping of rocks formed a natural shelter. Not quite a cave, but protected, hidden. Harvey checked the perimeter before gesturing her inside. Kailani sank to the ground gratefully. The pup in her arms squirmed free and immediately curled against its sibling. Both of them watched Harvey with a mixture of fear and something else, something that looked almost like hope. Harvey crouched at the entrance, keeping watch. Blood still stained his hands. His clothes were torn, but his breathing had steadied. "How far did we come?" Kailani asked. 5 miles, maybe 6. "And they're still following us?" "They will be. But we bought time." Harvey glanced back at her. "You should rest. I'll keep watch." Kailani wanted to argue, but exhaustion pulled at her like a physical weight. She leaned back against the rock wall and closed her eyes, just for a moment. When she woke, dawn was bleeding through the trees, painting everything in shades of gray and gold. The pups were curled against her side, their bodies warm and solid, and Harvey sat exactly where he'd been before, eyes on the forest, shoulders tense. "Did you sleep?" she asked. "No, Harvey, I don't sleep anymore." His voice was flat. "Final. Not since I found them." Kailani pushed herself upright. Her body ached everywhere, but she ignored it. "Your brother, the Alpha. Gregory. You said you argued." Harvey's shoulders tightened. "I need to understand," Kailani continued. "If I'm going to trust you with my life, I need to know what happened." For a long moment, Harvey didn't respond. Then he turned to face her, and the pain in his eyes was so raw it hurt to look at. "My brother believed in coexistence," Harvey said quietly. "He thought if we showed humans we weren't a threat, they'd leave us alone. He wanted peace, integration, a world where wolves didn't have to hide, and you didn't agree. I believed fear kept us alive. That showing weakness was suicide." Harvey's hands clenched. "We fought about it constantly. The night I left, I told him his idealism would get the pack killed." His voice cracked. "I was right. It wasn't your fault." "Yes, it was. I was Beta. I was supposed to protect them. Instead, I abandoned them because I couldn't control my temper." Kailani stood and crossed to where he sat. The movement felt dangerous and necessary in equal measure. She knelt in front of him, close enough to see the gold flecks in his eyes. "Your brother made his choices," she said. "The wolves who attacked made theirs. You didn't kill them. You didn't betray them. You just weren't there. I should have been. Maybe. But you're here now." Harvey stared at her. Something shifted in his expression. The wall he'd built around himself cracked, just slightly. Then the pups whined. Both of them scrambled to their feet, ears flat, bodies rigid. Harvey was up in an instant. "They're close." "How close?" "Close enough." Kailani grabbed her backpack. "Where do we go?" Harvey's jaw clenched. "Deeper. Into territory, I know. But it's dangerous. More dangerous than here? Different dangerous." A howl rose. So close Kailani felt it in her chest. Harvey's eyes met hers. "Trust me." Kailani took a breath. "I do." He nodded once, then shifted. Not fully, but his body changed, becoming something between human and wolf. Faster, stronger. He scooped up the smaller pup and looked at Kailani. "Run." They ran. The pursuit lasted 2 days. 2 days of running through forests that all looked the same. 2 days of sleeping in shifts, never safe, never still. 2 days of Harvey's body moving in ways that should have been impossible, his strength the only thing keeping them ahead of the hunters on their trail. By the second night, Kailani's body was breaking down. Her feet were blistered. Her muscles screamed. She'd twisted her ankle jumping over a fallen tree, and now every step sent pain shooting up her leg. But she didn't stop. Because the pups needed her. Because Harvey kept looking back to make sure she was still there. Because giving up meant death, and Kailani had already lost too much to let death take anything else. They stopped at another shelter. This one was barely more than an overhang, but it blocked the wind. Harvey set the pup down carefully and turned to check on Kailani. She saw the moment he noticed her limp. "You're hurt." "I'm fine. Don't lie to me." His voice carried an edge that made her spine stiffen. "I said I'm fine." Harvey moved closer, his eyes dropping to her ankle. "Sit down." "Harvey, sit down." The command in his voice left no room for argument. Kailani sank to the ground, exhaustion finally overwhelming stubbornness. Harvey knelt in front of her and gently lifted her injured foot. His hands were rough but careful as he unlaced her boot and eased it off. The ankle was swollen, probably sprained. "Why didn't you say something?" Harvey's voice was quiet. Too quiet. "Because we couldn't stop. I would have carried you." "You were already carrying one of the pups. I can carry more." Kailani looked at him. Really looked. Saw the exhaustion carved into his face. The blood still staining his clothes from the wolves he'd killed. the way his hands trembled slightly as he examined her ankle. "You can't save everyone," she said softly. Harvey's eyes snapped to hers. "Watch me." He disappeared into the darkness beyond their shelter. Kailani sat with the pups pressed against her, their small bodies warm and solid. The larger one licked her hand, and something in her chest cracked. These weren't just random animals. They were family. Not hers by blood, but hers by choice, by circumstance, by the bond that had formed the moment she'd found them under her sister's bed. Harvey returned carrying moss and strips of bark. He knelt again and began wrapping her ankle with a skill that spoke of experience. "Where did you learn this?" Kailani asked. "Pack healers." "Before." His hands paused. "Gregory's mate, Lydia, was a healer. She taught me basic field medicine. Said a beta should know how to patch up his wolves. You miss her." "I miss all of them." Harvey's voice roughened. "Every single one." Silence fell between them. Kailani watched his hands work, memorizing the careful way he touched her. Not possessive, protective. "The wolves chasing us," she said. "They're from the pack that killed yours." "Yes, Armani Conway's wolves." "Tell me about him." Harvey's hands stilled. "Why?" "Because I need to understand what we're running from." Harvey finished wrapping her ankle and sat back. His eyes were distant, focused on something Kailani couldn't see. "Armani Conway lost his human mate 10 years ago," Harvey said finally. "Killed by hunters who didn't care that she wasn't a wolf. Just that she loved one. It broke something in him. Made him believe the only way wolves survive is through absolute control, dominance, fear. So he takes territory by force. He takes everything by force. Wolves who don't submit get killed. Packs who resist get slaughtered. He's building an empire on blood and terror, and he thinks it's mercy." Kailani's stomach turned. Why the pups? Why do they matter so much to him? Because Gregory was the last alpha who openly opposed him. Killing Gregory's pack sent a message. But if Gregory's bloodline survived, if his sons grew up to challenge Armani's rule, Harvey's jaw clenched. It would undo everything, prove that resistance is possible. So he'll never stop hunting them. No, he won't. The weight of that truth settled over them. Kailani looked at the pups, curled together, sleeping despite the danger. "So small, so vulnerable. What about you?" she asked. "Why are you really doing this?" Harvey's eyes met hers. Revenge. "At first, I wanted to watch Armani burn for what he did. But now..." He trailed off, his gaze dropping to the pups. "Now I have something to protect again. Purpose. And you..." "Me?" "You bonded with them. Calmed them when nothing else could. They trust you." Harvey's voice dropped. "I trust you." The words hung in the air between them, heavy with meaning. Kailani's heart pounded. "I'm just a human. I'm not strong like you. I can't fight wolves." "You don't have to be strong. You already are." Harvey moved closer, his eyes intense. "Most humans would have run the moment they found the pups. You stayed. Most would have left me to fight alone. You followed. You're braver than any wolf I've ever known." Heat flooded Kailani's face. She looked away, unable to hold his gaze. "You should rest," Harvey said quietly. "We move again at dawn." He stood and returned to his position at the entrance, back to being the guard, the weapon, the shield between them and the darkness. But Kailani couldn't sleep, because something had shifted between them. Something dangerous. A pull that felt less like choice and more like gravity. Dawn came too soon. They moved through the forest as the sun climbed higher, painting the trees in shades of gold and green. Harvey led them deeper into territory he knew, following paths that looked random but clearly weren't. By midday, they reached a clearing, and that's when Kailani saw it. A structure. Old, covered in vines, but unmistakably built by hands. "What is this place?" she whispered. "Old packland, neutral ground." Harvey scanned the clearing. "If Armani's wolves cross this boundary, they break ancient laws. Even he won't risk that. So we're safe? Safer?" They entered the structure. Inside was a single large room, empty except for debris and old furniture. but it was shelter. Real shelter. Kaylani sank against the wall, her body finally giving up. The pups collapsed beside her, exhausted. Even Harvey looked worn. "How long can we stay?" Kaylani asked. "Long enough to figure out our next move, which is..." Harvey's expression darkened. "I go after Armani. End this." "Alone?" "Yes, that's suicide. Maybe." Harvey looked at her. "But it's the only way to keep you and the pups safe." Anger flared in Kaylani's chest. "You don't get to do that. You don't get to save us just to throw your life away." "It's not throwing my life away. It's finishing what should have been finished a year ago. It's dying for revenge when you have something to live for now." Harvey went still. "What?" Kaylani pushed herself upright despite the pain in her ankle. She crossed to him, her heart pounding. "You said you have purpose again. The pups. Me. But you're still planning to die. Still punishing yourself for something that wasn't your fault. You don't understand." "I understand grief. I understand guilt. My sister died, and I spent a year wondering if I could have stopped it, if I'd called more, visited more, cared more." Kaylani's voice cracked. "But I can't bring her back, and you can't bring your pack back. All we can do is protect what we have left." Harvey stared at her. His chest rose and fell rapidly. The air between them crackled with tension. "You're asking me to let him live," he said hoarsely. "I'm asking you to choose life over death. Us over revenge. I can't." "Why?" "Because..." Harvey's voice broke. "Because if I stop hunting him, if I let go of the rage, there's nothing left. Just emptiness. Just the pain." Kaylani reached up and placed her hand on his chest, right over his heart. His skin burned through the thin fabric of his shirt. "There's this," she said softly. "There's us. The pups. A chance at something new." Harvey's hand came up to cover hers. His fingers trembled. "I don't know how to be anything except angry," he whispered. "Then learn. With us." For a moment, Kaylani thought he might pull away, might choose the darkness over the light. Then Harvey bent his head and rested his forehead against hers. The bond between them flared, not breaking, solidifying. "Okay," he breathed. "Okay." They stood like that, breathing together, until the pups whined for attention. The moment broke, but something had changed. Harvey pulled back, his eyes clearer than they'd been before. "We need supplies. Food. Medical supplies. I'll go into the nearest town. I'm coming with you, Kaylani. I'm coming with you." Harvey looked like he wanted to argue. Then he nodded. "Fine, but we leave the pups here. Protected." They spent the next hour fortifying the structure. Harvey taught Kaylani how to lay scent markers that would confuse trackers. They moved branches to cover the entrance, created escape routes in case of attack. By the time they left, Kaylani felt marginally better about leaving the pups behind. The town was small, run down, the kind of place people moved to when they wanted to disappear. Harvey bought food and basic medical supplies while Kaylani waited outside. She watched people move through the streets, ordinary lives continuing, completely unaware of the war being fought in the shadows. Then she saw him. A man, tall, broad, watching her from across the street. His eyes glowed faintly in the afternoon sun. Kaylani's blood went cold. "Wolf." She backed toward the store entrance, but the man smiled and started crossing the street. Harvey burst through the door, supplies in hand. He took one look at the man and shoved Kaylani behind him. "Baylor!" Harvey growled. "Harvey Richmond." The man, Baylor, smiled wider. "Been a long time. Not long enough. Armani sent me to deliver a message." "I don't want to hear it. You're going to." Baylor's eyes flicked to Kaylani. "Pretty thing you got there. Human, too. Armani will enjoy breaking her." Harvey moved so fast, Kaylani barely saw it. One moment he was standing still. The next, he had Baylor slammed against the wall, forearm across his throat. "Touch her and I'll rip your spine out through your mouth," Harvey snarled. Baylor laughed, the sound wet and wrong. "Already claimed her, haven't you? Can smell it on you. The bond. How sweet." Harvey's grip tightened. The message. "Now." Armani knows about the pups, knows about the woman. He's coming. 3 days. And when he arrives, he's going to take everything you're trying to protect. Baylor's smile turned vicious. Including her. Harvey threw him into the street. Baylor landed on his feet, still grinning. See you soon, Beta. Then he disappeared into the crowd. Harvey grabbed Kailani's hand. We run. Now. They made it back to the shelter in half the time it had taken to reach town. The pups were safe, unharmed. But Kailani's mind raced. 3 days. 3 days, until Armani Conway arrived. 3 days to figure out how to survive. Harvey paced the room like a caged animal. We can't run forever. He'll track us anywhere we go. Then we fight. We can't win. Not against his entire pack. Kailani watched him spiral, watched the rage build again. Then she stood and crossed to him, placing herself directly in his path. Hey, she said firmly. Look at me. Harvey's eyes locked on hers. We're not dying in 3 days, Kailani said. We're not giving up. We're going to figure this out together. Harvey's hands came up to frame her face. His touch was gentle, despite the violence coiled in his body. I can't lose you, he said hoarsely. Not after everything. You won't. You can't promise that. Watch me. Then, without thinking, Kailani rose on her toes and kissed him. The bond exploded. Heat. Need. A connection so powerful it felt like being remade. Harvey made a sound low in his throat and pulled her closer, deepening the kiss until Kailani couldn't tell where she ended and he began. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Harvey rested his forehead against hers again. We fight, he said. Together. Together, Kailani agreed. The pups whined, as if agreeing too. 3 days. 3 days to prepare. 3 days to find a way to survive. Or die trying. They spent the first day planning. Harvey knew Armani's tactics. Knew how he fought, how he thought, how he destroyed anyone who stood against him. And every strategy Harvey outlined ended the same way. In blood. He'll bring at least 20 wolves, Harvey said, crouched over a rough map he'd drawn in the dirt. Experienced fighters. Loyal to him. He won't take chances. Kailani studied the map. What about allies? Other packs who oppose him? Dead or hiding? Armani doesn't leave loose ends. So, we're alone. Harvey's jaw clenched. Yes, the pups slept curled together in the corner. They'd grown stronger over the past days, their bodies filling out. But they were still too young, too vulnerable. Kailani watched them and felt fury build in her chest. He's doing this for them, for 2 pups who can't even defend themselves. He's doing it because they represent hope. And hope is dangerous to tyrants. Then we make hope into a weapon. Harvey looked at her sharply. What? Kailani stood and walked to where the pups slept. An idea was forming. Dangerous. Maybe impossible. But it was something. You said I calm them, she said slowly. That my presence soothes their wolf sides. What if that's not just comforting? What if it's power? Harvey went very still. Explain. My sister hid them, protected them. But why her? Why not another wolf? Unless she had something they needed, something unique, a binding gift. What? Harvey rose and crossed to her. His eyes were intent, calculating. There are stories, legends about humans who can calm the split between wolf and human, who can tether the 2 halves together so they don't tear each other apart. It's rare. Most wolves live with the violence of 2 souls fighting for dominance. But a binder can ease that, make it bearable. Kailani's heart raced. You think my sister had this gift? I think she might have. And I think you inherited it, but I haven't done anything. You have. The pups calm around you in ways they don't with me. And when you're near me. Harvey's voice dropped. The rage quiets. The wolf settles. I can think clearly, instead of just reacting. Kailani absorbed this. If it was true, if she really had this power, then maybe they had a chance. Can I learn to use it? Deliberately? I don't know. Maybe. If we had time. We have 2 days. Harvey's expression darkened. It's not enough. It has to be. The second day was spent testing. Harvey taught Kailani to sense the bond between them, to feel the thread that connected her humanity to his duality. It was subtle at first, like trying to hear a whisper in a storm, but slowly, she began to understand. When Harvey's rage built, she could feel it like heat against her skin. And when she focused, when she breathed and reached through that invisible tether, his rage cooled, didn't disappear, but became manageable. "It's not control," Harvey warned. "Don't try to control me. That's what Armani does. What you're doing is different. You're reminding the wolf that the human is still there, that they're partners, not enemies." Kailani nodded, exhausted. The effort drained her in ways she didn't fully understand, but she kept practicing, because their lives depended on it. That night, Harvey built a fire. They sat together, the pups between them, while the forest pressed close outside their shelter. Kailani's ankle had healed enough to walk without limping. Her body had adapted to the constant movement, the danger. She was changing, becoming something harder, sharper. "Tell me about your sister," Harvey said suddenly. Kailani looked at him. "Why?" "Because you're fighting for her as much as you're fighting for the pups. I want to understand." Kailani stared into the fire. Kiana was older by 3 years, protective, fierce. "We were close growing up, but then I went to college and she drifted. Stopped calling. Stopped visiting. When she told me she was moving to the mountains, I thought she was running from something, maybe herself. Maybe she was running toward something," Harvey offered. "Maybe." Kailani's throat tightened. "I should have visited more, should have asked more questions. But I was busy with my own life, and I told myself she'd reach out when she was ready." Her voice cracked. "She never did." Harvey's hand found hers in the darkness. "She loved you. I can feel it in this place. In how she protected the pups. She was keeping them safe until you could find them." "How do you know?" "Because that's what family does." They sat in silence, hands intertwined, while the fire crackled between them. Then Harvey spoke again, his voice rough. "I need to tell you something." Kailani looked at him. "When we face Armani, there's a chance I'll lose control. The rage, the grief. It's still there, waiting, and if he pushes hard enough, if he threatens you or the pups." Harvey's grip tightened. "I might become something you can't pull back from. I won't let that happen. You might not have a choice." "Harvey, I'm serious, Kailani. If I turn into a monster, if I can't stop myself, you take the pups and you run. Promise me." "No, promise me." "I said no." Kailani pulled her hand free and shifted to face him fully. "You don't get to do this. You don't get to plan for becoming a monster. We either fight together or we don't fight at all." Harvey's eyes flashed. "I'm trying to protect you. I don't need protection. I need a partner. You need..." Kailani kissed him. It was fiercer this time, desperate. All the fear and rage and hope poured into the contact. Harvey made a sound deep in his chest and pulled her closer, his hands sliding into her hair. The bond flared between them, not gentle, raw, powerful. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Harvey rested his forehead against hers. "You terrify me," he whispered. "Good, because you terrify me too." His laugh was broken. "We're a disaster. We're survivors." Harvey kissed her again, softer this time, a promise instead of a plea. "After this is over," he said against her lips, "if we survive, I want..." "What?" "Everything. With you." Kailani's heart clenched. "Then we survive." They spent that night wrapped together, the pups curled against them, while the forest whispered warnings outside. The third day dawned gray and cold. Armani would arrive by nightfall. Harvey spent the morning creating defensive positions around their shelter. Traps, escape routes, anything that might give them an advantage. Kailani practiced with her gift, trying to deepen her connection to the bond, to make it strong enough to hold Harvey even when the violence tried to consume him. But doubt crept in. What if she wasn't strong enough? What if the gift failed when it mattered most? What if Harvey died protecting her and she had to live with that for the rest of her life? Afternoon arrived. Then evening. The sun dropped below the trees, painting the world in shadows. And then they came. Kailani heard them first. The rustling in the trees, the snap of branches, the low growls that vibrated through the earth. Harvey moved to the entrance, his body already changing. "Stay behind me." Kailani scooped up both pups and pressed back into the shelter's corner. Wolves emerged from the forest. Not 20, 30, maybe more. They circled the clearing, eyes glowing in the darkness, bodies massive and powerful. Kailani's heart hammered against her ribs. This was it. This was how they died. Then the wolves parted, and Armani Conway stepped forward. He was beautiful in the way predators are beautiful. Tall, perfectly proportioned, eyes that burned with intelligence and cruelty. He wore the form of a man, but the wolf underneath pressed against his skin, visible in every movement. "Harvey Richmond," Armani said, his voice smooth. "I was wondering when we'd meet again." Harvey's growl was inhuman. "You murdered my family. I eliminated a threat. There's a difference. You slaughtered innocents." "I made an example." Armani's eyes shifted to Kailani. "And speaking of examples, you've been busy." Harvey moved to block Kailani from view. "She's under my protection." "Is she? Or is she just another thing you'll lose because you can't let go of your precious ideals?" Armani smiled. "Your brother died for his beliefs. Will you die for yours?" "If I have to." "How noble. How pointless." Armani gestured, and two wolves lunged forward. Harvey met them with a violence that shook the earth. Bodies collided. Blood sprayed. Kailani clutched the pups tighter, her gift reaching for Harvey instinctively. She felt his rage, felt the wolf trying to take over completely, and she pulled, gently but firmly, reminding him he was still human, still capable of choice. Harvey roared and threw the wolves off him. Armani watched with interest. "Fascinating. She's binding you, keeping you leashed. She's keeping me sane." "Same thing." Armani tilted his head. "I'll enjoy breaking her, teaching her what real power looks like." Harvey shifted fully. The transformation was brutal and complete. Bones cracked, fur erupted, and where a man had stood, a massive wolf now crouched, teeth bared, ready to kill. Armani smiled. "There it is, the monster your brother feared." Harvey lunged. The battle was chaos. Wolves poured into the clearing. Harvey fought like something feral, tearing through them with claws and teeth, but there were too many. For every wolf he dropped, two more appeared. Kailani felt his pain through the bond, felt him bleeding, breaking. She reached deeper, pulling harder, trying to give him strength, but it wasn't enough. Armani struck from behind. Harvey went down hard, blood pouring from deep gashes across his back. "No!" Kailani screamed. She set the pups down and ran toward Harvey without thinking. Armani caught her easily, one hand wrapping around her throat. "Such devotion," he murmured. "Such waste." Harvey struggled to rise, his eyes fixed on Kailani. Armani's grip tightened. "Watch her die, Beta. Then watch your brother's pups die, and know you failed them all." Kailani clawed at Armani's hand, her vision blurred. Her lungs screamed, then something inside her snapped. Not broke, opened. Power flooded through her body like lightning in reverse. Not destructive, protective. A wave of pure binding force that erupted from her core and slammed into every wolf in the clearing. They collapsed. All of them, even Armani. His hand released her throat as he stumbled backward, eyes wide with shock. Kailani hit the ground, gasping. Her vision cleared slowly. Around her, wolves lay incapacitated, their bodies twitching but unable to move. Harvey shifted back to human form, bleeding but alive. He crawled toward her. "What did you do?" he rasped. "I don't know." Armani struggled to his knees, fury twisting his features. "You dare." Harvey stood, swaying but upright. "It's over, Armani. It's never over. It is now." Harvey crossed the clearing in 3 steps and snapped Armani Conway's neck. The sound echoed through the forest. Silence fell. The wolves who could still move began to back away, their eyes fixed on Kailani in fear and awe. Harvey returned to her side and pulled her into his arms. "Are you hurt?" "I don't think so. They held each other while the forest slowly came back to life. The pups crept forward, pressing against Kailani's legs. It was over. They'd survived. But as the surviving wolves gathered at the edge of the clearing, Kailani realized something new was beginning, and it terrified her more than the battle had. The wolves knelt. Not all of them. Some fled into the forest, scattering like shadows. But at least a dozen remained, heads bowed, eyes fixed on Harvey. Kailani felt him tense beside her. "What are they doing?" she whispered. "Submitting, offering allegiance." Harvey's voice was flat, empty. An older wolf shifted to human form, male, scarred. His eyes held a mix of relief and desperation. "Beta Richmond," the wolf said. "Armani is dead. His tyranny ended. We submit to you. Lead us." Harvey's hands clenched. "I'm not an alpha. You killed one. That makes you alpha by right of combat. I don't want it." The wolves shifted uneasily. The scarred man stepped closer. "Then what do we do? We've lived under fear for so long. We need guidance, protection. Find it elsewhere." "Harvey," Kailani said softly. He looked at her, and she saw the war in his eyes. The part of him that wanted to walk away, to take her and the pups and disappear, and the part that remembered what it meant to be Beta, to serve, to protect. "Your brother believed in something better," Kailani continued. "Don't let Armani's death be just revenge. Make it mean something." Harvey stared at her for a long moment. Then he turned back to the assembled wolves. "I'm not Armani," he said, his voice carrying through the clearing. "I won't rule through fear. I won't force allegiance. But if you want sanctuary, if you want to build something better, then you can stay. On one condition." "Name it," the scarred wolf said. "No more hunting humans. No more terror. We coexist, or we die trying." Murmurs rippled through the gathered wolves. Some nodded. Others looked uncertain. "My brother died believing wolves and humans could live together," Harvey continued. "I called him naive. I was wrong. So we try his way. We build sanctuary. And anyone who can't live with that leaves now." 3 wolves stood and vanished into the trees. The rest remained. The scarred wolf bowed his head. "We'll follow Beta. On your terms." Harvey's jaw clenched, but he nodded. Then it settled. The wolves dispersed, moving to tend their wounded and gather their dead. Kailani stayed close to Harvey. The pups pressed against her legs. "Are you okay?" she asked quietly. "No, but I will be." Harvey looked down at her. "Thank you." "For what?" "Reminding me who I am, who I want to be." Kailani rose on her toes and kissed him gently. "We do that for each other." Harvey pulled her closer, deepening the kiss. Heat bloomed between them, different from the desperate passion of before. This was promise, choice, future. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Harvey rested his forehead against hers. "I love you," he said simply. Kailani's heart stuttered. "Harvey, I know it's fast. I know we've barely had time to breathe. But when you're staring death in the face, you stop lying about the things that matter." His eyes held hers. "I love you. I think I started loving you the moment you put yourself between those pups and danger." Tears burned Kailani's eyes. "I love you too." Harvey kissed her again. Soft, reverent. A wolf coughed awkwardly nearby. They broke apart to find the scarred wolf watching them with an expression caught between amusement and embarrassment. "Sorry to interrupt," he said, "but we need to discuss logistics. Where we settle, how we organize, resources." Harvey sighed. "Right. Of course." The next hours were spent planning. The wolves, most of Armani's former pack, knew locations of safe territory. Abandoned packlands. Neutral zones where they could build without immediate threat. Harvey listened, offered input, made decisions with a confidence Kailani recognized as beta instinct resurfacing. This was who he was. Not a rogue, not a weapon, a leader. By the time they'd hammered out a basic plan, dawn was breaking. The wolves dispersed to rest and prepare. Harvey walked Kailani and the pups back to their shelter. Inside, exhaustion finally caught up with them. Harvey built up the fire while Kailani settled the pups. They'd grown so much in just days. Soon they'd need to shift, to learn control, to understand their heritage, but not yet. For now, they were safe. Harvey sat beside her, his body warm against hers. We should name them. Kailani looked up. Really? They're Gregory's sons. They deserve names. Legacy. She looked at the pups. The larger one, bold and protective. The smaller one, gentle but fierce when needed. Ronald, she said, touching the larger pup. And Clay. Harvey smiled. Good names. Ronald and Clay. Two pups who would grow into wolves, who would carry their father's bloodline forward, who would remember that peace was possible. Kailani leaned against Harvey's shoulder. What happens now? We build. We heal. We figure out how to make my brother's dream real. That's a big job. Good thing I have help. Harvey's hand found hers, fingers intertwining. The bond between them hummed, strong and steady. They sat like that as the sun rose higher, painting the world in shades of gold and hope. 3 months later, Sanctuary was real. The pack had settled in old territory, land that had been neutral for decades. They'd repaired structures, built new ones, created something that looked almost like a community. It wasn't perfect. Some wolves struggled with the new rules. Others left, unable to adapt to life without the constant violence they'd known under Armani's rule. But most stayed, and slowly, carefully, they began to heal. Harvey stood on the porch of the main house, watching wolves move through the clearing. Training sessions, supply runs, normal pack life resuming like blood flowing back into frozen limbs. Kailani emerged from inside, carrying a basket of medical supplies. She'd taken over healing duties, her binding gift making her uniquely suited to help wolves stabilize their dual natures. Gregory wants to shift today, she said, setting the basket down. Harvey smiled. Gregory. They'd renamed the larger pup after his father. The name fit, bold, protective, a natural leader even at 3 months old. Is he ready? As ready as he'll ever be. Kailani leaned against the railing beside him. His brother's nervous. Clay always is, but he'll follow. They stood together, watching the pack. Harvey's hand found Kailani's, fingers intertwining automatically now. The bond between them had deepened over the months, becoming as natural as breathing. Pearl asked to join us, Kailani said. She's human, married to one of the wolves, wants to learn about binding gifts. Harvey looked at her. You're building something, training others. Someone has to. There are probably more humans with this gift. They should know how to use it. Kailani's eyes held his. Your brother's vision wasn't just about wolves. It was about everyone. Harvey pulled her closer. When did you get so wise? I learned from the best. They kissed, soft and familiar, the kind of kiss that spoke of mornings and futures, and all the time in the world. Ronald Gregory appeared from around the corner of the house, Clay trailing behind him. Both pups were nearly full-grown now, their bodies filling out with muscle and power. We're ready, Gregory announced. Harvey nodded. Then let's do this. They walked to the training clearing together. Pack members gathered to watch, their presence supportive rather than pressuring. First shifts were sacred moments, private. But Gregory had asked for witnesses. Proof that things were different now. Harvey knelt in front of his nephews. Remember what we practiced. Don't fight it. Let the shift flow. Your wolf isn't your enemy. It's your other half. Gregory nodded, determination clear in his eyes. Clay looked at Kailani. Will you stay close? Always, she promised. The shift began. It was messy, painful. Gregory cried out as bones cracked and reformed. Clay whimpered, his body fighting the change. But Kailani was there, her gift wrapping around them, reminding them they were whole, that the wolf and human were one being, not two fighting for control. And then it happened. Gregory stood on 4 legs, a young wolf with his father's eyes. Clay followed moments later, smaller but just as complete. The pack erupted in celebration. Harvey felt his chest tighten. Gregory's vision lived on, not in his brother but in his sons. in the pack they were building, in the future they were creating. Kailani's hand found his. He'd be proud. I hope so. That night, they gathered for a celebration. Food, stories, laughter that had been absent for too long. Harvey watched his pack his family now and felt something he hadn't felt in over a year. Peace, not the absence of conflict, but the presence of hope. Later, when the celebration wound down and the pack dispersed, Harvey and Kailani walked to the edge of the clearing. The forest stretched out before them, dark but no longer threatening. I've been thinking, Kailani said, about making this permanent, staying, building a life here. She looked at him. With you. Harvey's heart stuttered. You mean that? I came to these mountains to disappear. Instead, I found purpose. Family. You. Kailani smiled. I'm not going anywhere. Harvey pulled her close, burying his face in her hair. I love you. I love you too. They stood like that, wrapped in each other, while the pack settled for the night around them. Gregory and Clay curled together near the fire. Their wolf forms relaxed in content. The sanctuary was real. The healing had begun. And for the first time since the massacre, Harvey Richmond believed in tomorrow. Months turned into a year. The sanctuary grew. More wolves joined. More humans discovered their gifts and learned to use them. Kailani trained them while Harvey led the pack with a combination of his brother's vision and his own hard-won wisdom. It wasn't easy. There were challenges. Wolves who refused to adapt. Humans who feared them. The constant threat of other packs who saw their coexistence as weakness. But they persisted. Because hope, once lit, is harder to extinguish than fear. Gregory and Clay grew into strong young wolves, leaders in their own right, carrying their father's name forward with pride. And Harvey and Kailani built a life together. Not perfect, not easy, but theirs. One evening, as the sun set over the sanctuary, Harvey found Kailani sitting on their porch, watching the pack. He sat beside her and pulled her close. What are you thinking about? He asked. How much has changed? How far we've come. She looked at him. How grateful I am that I found those pups under the bed. Harvey smiled. Best, worst day of your life? Something like that? They sat in comfortable silence, watching night fall over the sanctuary they'd built from ashes and grief and stubborn hope. Somewhere in the darkness, a wolf howled, not in mourning, in joy, and the pack answered. If you enjoyed this story of redemption, fierce love, and found family, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for Ariel Romance Library. More emotionally powerful stories are coming, and the next one might break your heart before it heals it.